Hello, my dearest. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. A few months ago, I was at a leadership conference, and I found myself in conversation with Mama Lee. She's the mother of Marc Lee, who was the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq. I was so impressed to learn about the work that she'd been doing for the military community over the years, and especially interested in how her organization used spas as a way to support soldiers and heal the traumas that they're facing after they returned home. I wanted to bring her on to share her story, but also to share an opportunity for you to pay it forward with the incredible work that we get to do every single day. I'll share more about that opportunity in the interview, but for now, I'm going to read Mama Lee's bio and then we'll go ahead and play it. Debbie Lee is an author, public speaker, and founder of America's Mighty Warriors. She's traveled the nation telling her son's amazing story and advocating for our troops, veterans, their families, and families of the fallen. Debbie understands the sacrifice that our troops make and that freedom isn't free. On August 2nd, 2006, she received a knock at the door that would forever change her life. She was notified that her son, Marc Alan Lee, had been killed in action, becoming the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq. Since that day, Debbie has dedicated her life to our military, defending our defenders, and fighting to keep the freedoms that our troops have fought for. By God's strength, she chose to rise above the most devastating circumstance of her life to impact others' lives, giving them hope and encouragement. In response to her son's last letter home to pass on the love and kindness, the precious gift of human life, she founded America's Mighty Warriors. Debbie has completed a multitude of cross-country tours, visited Gitmo and Iraq in 2007 and 2010, becoming the first Gold Star mom in history to visit the combat zone where her son died. She's conducted over 1,000 media interviews and has been a regular on Fox News. Debbie appeared on stage with Tim McGraw at the ACMAs in 2007 and has met with President Bush and President Trump on numerous times and can be found on Capitol Hill advocating for our troops. Her son Christopher served in the Marines and daughter Cheryl's husband served in the Army, and her brother retired from the Air Force. She's a proud grandmother of 11 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. She's known in the SEAL community as Mama Lee. Debbie was awarded the Cooper Spur Award in 2002 from the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame for her years of selfless service to our military and veterans. So she has certainly taken a devastating circumstance, something that happened to her, and chosen to make it positive. I will go ahead and play that interview. You can hear from her yourself, and I hope that it inspires you. I hope that you enjoy the interview. All right, Mama Lee, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so thrilled and so honored to have you here and have this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to share what we're doing in memory of my son and encourage other people that no matter what you're going through, that you may not have a choice, the circumstances that have been dealt to you, but you do have a choice how you respond and how you can make a difference no matter what you're going through in life.
Oh, I love that. I say that all the time too, in a little bit of a different way. Is like we don't get to choose what happens to us, but we choose how we respond.
100%.
And it's such an important approach to life in not being in that victim mentality, because there's so many things that can just squish us down, and we have the choice every day to, shine our light or not let that limit us in what our true potential is.
Yes, you are spot on.
So tell me about Marc. For our listeners that don't know who he is, give us just, however much you want to share about his life, his impact, all of that.
You bet. So Marc Lee was my youngest son. I have 3 children. My son, Christopher, served in the Marines. My son-in-law, Christopher, served in the Army. He was in Iraq when we first went over. And Marc went into the Navy in May of 2001, just before 9/11. All 3 of my kids were involved in the military. And he went in the Navy recruiting office and came out with a contract to be able to go to BUD/S and try out to be a SEAL. Doesn't guarantee you'll be a SEAL, but it says you've got the, mental fortitude, you've got the education, you've got the physical aspects that we look for in good candidates for that. And so he went to become a SEAL, went through BUDS and ended up graduating in class 251 and earned his trident. And so proud of all of my children who serve in the military. I wake up every morning and I get to enjoy the freedoms that each one of us are blessed with here in America, because there's so many men and women who have sacrificed and stood up and stood in the line of fire, many of them, to be able to defend those for us. And I never take that for granted. And so for me, I was blessed to have these three kids, one a son-in-law who served our country, and was very proud of them and very grateful for all of our men and women who serve and the sacrifices they make for us. But Mark came into our life in a very difficult time. I had just gone through a very abusive marriage. He had tried to kill me. And at 23, I found myself with a 3-year-old, an 18-month-old, and wondering how I was going to feed these kids. No child support, no help. And found out 2 weeks after the divorce that I was pregnant with Mark. And it was like, oh my goodness, I've got these 2 little kids. How am I going to feed another one? What am I going to do? And they heard 2 heartbeats all the time. The only thing they can figure out now is that he was super active, and that because 46 years ago, they didn't do ultrasounds all the time in a pregnancy to find out, or, have the ability to listen to the heartbeat with the technology that we have today, but they would just use the stethoscope. And so they figured that just because he was so active in the womb, that it just kept echoing back and forth when he would move. But so I was prepared to have, twin girls. I was positive. I knew I was having girls. And so had girl names picked out. Figured I'd have 3 days in the hospital because I had insurance. They always asked, do you have little children at home? And I did. And do you have help? And I had no help. So I'm like, good, that'll buy me 3 days before I'm thrown into the world of these, 3 small children on my own. And they came in the day after and they said, you need to leave. We need your hospital bed for someone else. And I said, no. I don't have help at home. I have 2 little children already, and I'm going to be doing this by myself. And they said, I'm sorry, we need your bed for someone else, but you need to name the baby. And Mark was born in March. His birthday was March 20th. I had the menu to order my food for the day on my tray table, and there was another piece of paper that had covered up the H, and I saw MARC. And I was like, oh, I like that name. And so that was what, inspired me. I hadn't done research to know what his name meant, but in later years found out his name meant mighty warrior. And so proud of him. He definitely lived up to his name. Very joyful growing up through his youth. He would tell knock-knock jokes that he thought were hilarious. And they were so bad. But he would fall on the floor laughing at himself, because he thought he was so funny. And of course, you couldn't help but laugh at him laughing at himself on the floor. So then he thought his jokes were really good. But he did end up getting class clown 2 years in a row, his junior year and senior year. And I'm like, this is going to get you to college. How? But it was that joy that we needed in our life that Mark brought into our lives. And so grateful for that. His final actions on his last day found him in Ramadi, Iraq. And 3 different times that day, he stood up in the direct line of fire, willingly made the choice to give his life to save his teammates. And a very selfless young man, all through his life, but obviously evident by his final actions. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He just knew it was the right thing to do. He'd had another teammate severely injured that they had to get medical help for and evacuate him and get him out of there. And so he stood up in the line of fire. He had the big gun. He knew he could lay down some suppressive fire, but he needed to provide that cover so the medic could get up to the rooftop. And they were able to do that, did get Ryan evacuated, and were able to save him that day. He did die 3 years later from complications from surgery. But after I went through those circumstances, losing your child is the hardest thing you can go through. I have been a widow. June 1st will be 30 years that I've been a widow. My husband took his life. And after he died, I wrote in my journal 2 weeks later, what is wrong with me? Why am I still crying? Why have things not gone back to normal? I had no clue what grief was like. And so I started reading lots of books about grief and grieving, and there's 7 stages to grief, and you go through this way. And not sure who all these people are that write these books, but I think some of them probably haven't gone through grief. I think there are generalities for people as you process through that. But it was at that point that I started realizing that grief was a process. And when I did that reading, they said the toughest grief that a person could ever go through is the instant death of their child, no matter what age that child is. And I can confirm that after losing a husband and a son, that losing Mark was so much harder. And I could have had a pity party because that pain was so deep. I understand why people can't pull themselves out of that when parents lose a kid. But for me to have that pity party, that wouldn't bring Mark back. It physically would make me sick. The stress, we work with our veterans who are struggling with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury. The stress destroys your bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, how I'm wired. Nobody stinking want to be around me. And so my choice was to put on Mark's boots and pick up his weapon and stay in the fight. I'm not, physically carrying a gun around, but it is a fight. And I'm not comparing myself to what our veterans do in combat. But it is a fight to make sure that they have the medical care. It is a fight to make sure the other families, loved ones are honored and remembered. And so, my choice was to do that and start our foundation, America's Mighty Warriors. It's not named Mighty Warrior after Mark. It's America's Mighty Warriors because it's every man and woman who served. It's every other Gold Star family. And it's our honor to be able to do that and to carry on. And it will be 18 years in August that we've lost Mark. But to see the impact this kid is still making around the world in such a crazy way. And, I get to see him still saving his teammates' lives. Mm-hmm. And the difference that he's making probably wouldn't have happened, if he'd been here. And I am so proud of him and honored to be able to continue to support those who were willing to or did give their lives for us.
So when we were talking at the muster event, you shared that a lot of the work that America's Mighty Warriors, now you started this organization, to, as you just shared, but a lot of the work that you're doing for these Gold Star families and veterans, it involves spa to a certain degree. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm at this conference. I didn't know I was going to meet anybody that knew anything about spa. I was, as a female, going into an event like that, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure. And muster, for those of you that are not familiar, it's an event that Jocko Willink and Leif Babin put on. They're the authors of Extreme Ownership. And that was where I met you, Mama Lee, and got to have the conversation and everything. But it's a very, from the outside, it seems a very masculine event. It seems very strong in that sense. But I was so pleasantly surprised at how kind everybody was and how open everybody was and how, these two SEALs are up there talking about kindness and love and relationships and all of these really beautiful pieces of leadership. But to go back to the spa thing, I remember coming over and talking to you and learning that part of the true healing work that happens for these soldiers that have PTSD or TBI. TBI is traumatic brain injury. I think everyone's familiar with post-traumatic stress disorder. But these are real things that impact life, the day-to-day life of these individuals. And some of the ways that some of the therapies that are helping these individuals move past that is touch. And your organization provides spa services through, tell me a little bit more about that. Massage, cryotherapy, there's different ones that you support these soldiers with to help them heal through these major issues that they're facing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're providing for our veterans. And so many of the things that they're trying out there are just masking symptoms. They're not healing them. And I think one of the things that we hear over and over, whether it's our veterans who are struggling, whether it's our Gold Star families, that they feel so all alone. They feel like nobody could understand what they're going through. And so I think when we can provide that encouragement to them, those therapies that provide that for them, we provide hyperbaric oxygen therapy, hormone and supplement therapy. We do the cryotherapy if it's in facilities near us that we can do that. The massage, the touch, the spa days. We do events in East Texas where we do retreats, and we have 3 days that we have the massage therapist in there the whole time. But we have a spa day where we bring in the top stylist in Dallas that charges, like $200 for a haircut and comes in and does haircuts for every one of these families and brings, several of the stylists with him. We do, facials and makeup and, paint their nails and just pamper them and love on them and let them know how important and how special they are to us. We provide gift cards for them to go to spas, in different places and get massage, but anything that involves touch, obviously in the appropriate way, is so healing to them. And it's just reminding you.
We saw that with COVID too, during COVID, so many, at one point, every spa in the world was shut down. And we noticed when they started opening back up again, spas had this huge boom. And there were so many people that were really focused on the need for self-care and the need for touch and the need for that moment that they can really just allow themselves to receive.
Yeah.
And touch is such an important piece. I know even facial massage is incredible. There's so much of the lymphatic system is in the face, and by doing proper face massage, that helps drain. I mean, there's so many healing aspects to it, besides also just it really feeling wonderful and allowing you to just kind of drop your shoulders.
And I think the other piece that's important to that, always working with our veterans, as I do, and we do here at America's Mighty Warriors, encouraging them and pouring back into their lives and telling them the importance, as you said, of self-care, making sure that you're eating healthy, that you're exercising, but that you're taking care of yourself in those other ways. And I, had to look at myself and go, okay, you're great and taking care of everybody else, but what are you doing? Are you following your own advice? And so for years, I have a scheduled, weekly session at my spa here that I go in and receive different therapies to keep me in that frame of mind. But for our caregivers, so those spouses that are taking care of our veterans, who are giving back and giving back and giving back, and they're depleted themselves because that's a full-time job, lots of times to be able to take care of those. A lot of our veterans aren't sleeping well. These are things that help relax them and get them then to have better sleep by going through, the different treatments that are offered at different spas. And so crucial, so important to be able to do that. And man, I come out after, my treatments and I'm just like,
I feel like a new woman.
I do. Yes, I do. And I feel like then I'm refreshed and rejuvenated then to be able to go back into what I do and be able to give 100%. So, I'm so grateful for all of those that are listening to this that do provide those services. And what a gift and what a blessing you are, whether there are veterans in the military or our Gold Star families or those, but man, that's a crucial, important service that you're providing. So thank you.
Yes. Yes. Well, our community, it's often because it's our profession. Oftentimes you forget the impact that it makes on other people. It's something that we're doing every day. And a lot of times it's like, yes, we're making your skin look more beautiful, or we're addressing acne or anti-aging or whatever. But ultimately what we're doing is giving confidence. We're giving, it's such an important piece, because when someone feels good or looks good or is and happy with how they're looking, and not that there's any standard of beauty, when a patient would come into our practice, it's like, how do you feel good? I don't care if you wear makeup or not makeup. I don't care if you have brown spots or no brown spots. It's how do you feel good? And when we can make you feel good and look how you want to look, that you have confidence, you show up in the world in a bigger way. You show up in the world as your best self. And that's how we can continue to pay it forward through this giving. And it is so important. Oftentimes, and I'll say women in the beauty industry, because we're, there are some great men in our industry as well, but we're overwhelmingly female. We get this stigma that you're not smart enough if you went to beauty school, or you're not. It's like this kind of look down upon profession. In it's getting better and better for sure, but it's definitely an issue that, we'll see women in their 40s and 50s going into aesthetics that they wanted to go their whole life, but they were always told, no, you need to be a secretary or you need to be whatever this role is because whatever. And I just want to highlight and reiterate how important the work is that we do and the impact that we can have on other people through our hands and through touch and through just holding space and being present for people that really need that moment to recharge and be their best selves. So,
and I think one of the other side benefits that is there, depending on the individual, sometimes people like to go in for their treatments and just be quiet and just totally veg out and relax. But there's other people that feel like there's no safe space for them to share anything. And lots of times
yes, that we're therapists.
Yeah, because the provider is there, they will be able to just, and not expecting advice back, but just be able to share, here's what's going on. Here's just why my heart is so low or I'm struggling or, and as they're doing that, they experience through the touch and the treatments that healing.
Like a release.
Yes, the release. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a common topic because we know that there's a lot of people that do like to talk. And then for me, I don't want to say anything. I just want to zone out and be quiet. But it's one of those things where it's like, we have to ask the patient, how do you want to experience your service? How do you, and we ask that in the beginning to make sure that we're giving them exactly what they need. But there's so many in our industry that are empaths and really just loving and nurturing. And I think that just energetically, how they show up, it provides that safe space for someone to be able to open up and know that there's not judgment there. There's, it's really just wanting to love on you and honor you as a human being.
Yeah. So. And so important.
Okay. So we wanted to provide a way that those in our community can be able to support your organization, America's Mighty Warriors. And, I think that being able to give is one of the most beautiful gifts. And not everybody is in the situation where they can give money, but we can give time, we can give services, we can give, how many people out there in our community, all across the United States, could donate a service, could donate a massage, could donate time in their salt spa. We've got salt rooms, we've got cryotherapy, we've got even LED, for these soldiers that are dealing with inflammation. There's so many things that we have at our disposal that we can do to support our communities. And there are veterans and Gold Star families all across the United States. So we wanted to use this platform for good. We wanted to use it to bring awareness to, obviously, something that I care deeply about is supporting the military and the service members' families and everybody that contributes to these individuals that are just near and dear to my heart and to, so many's. So we are calling for anybody that is listening that has a spa that wants to donate a service to get in contact with Mama Lee. There's a link below this episode to her website, America's Mighty Warriors, and give what you can. Give what you can, whether it's time or a service or whatever that is, because every little bit helps. But it's such an incredible way that you can get involved in your community, that you can support the service members and do good. It really, really feels good.
And we're a national charity. We work with veterans and Gold Star families all over the United States. So we've got access and those that we do work with in every single state. So that's one of those things that I think would be crucial to do that. One of the terms that we have in the military is a force multiplier. That would be if you're calling in air support, when you've got a small platoon on the ground, or you've got the cannons, the big tanks bringing in the cannons, and that's the force multipliers that makes their impact greater than the few that are there. And so for those that are listening, that's what you guys are to us, to be those force multipliers that provide so many more of our veterans these therapies. And as you said, there's so many great ones. The different spas, have different ones that they offer. And so to be able to donate that, and that concept of, just even if you could just do one service, in your totality of the year, how many services you provide, that's a small amount. But when we have a lot of people doing a small amount, that multiplies and is a force multiplier really quickly. And so to be able to offer that and to provide so much more healing, my son wrote an amazing letter about 2.5 weeks before he was killed. He emailed it to about 12 or 13 of us. And it ended up being the last written letter that we got from him. And he talks about how we could change our world by doing more random acts of kindness. He said, when's the last time you paid for a stranger's cup of coffee, meal, or tank of gas? And he said, we could change our reputation as a country. And so to be able to include those things in there as well, on those difficult days, we're coming up on his birthday on March 20th, on August 2nd, on the anniversary. I go to the bases, or I go in a restaurant near me, and I look for those who have, hats on or something that identifies them in the military. And we buy their meals, we buy their coffee, we pay for tanks of gas. But to be able to have those, gift cards as well, to be able to give out to them and say, hey, here's another gift for you. It's not just the time that we're giving it to them and honoring, then they get it again when they come into your spas and receive that, that healing and that care and that love and that encouragement. And so to be able to change so many lives together rather than just what we can do here, 96% of what comes into our foundation actually goes back out the door to our veterans and troops and Gold Star families, because we have amazing volunteers and supporters just like you guys who step up, and donate those services, who, donate financially if they can, donate a treatment. And that just makes such a greater impact. And again, another way that we continue to honor my son, Mark, and, take the words of his last letter home, to pass on the kindness, the love.
I love that. Pass on the kindness. Well, I feel like that's a great place to kind of pause. That feels, pass on the kindness. I think that it's such a beautiful thing to be able to give. And, we are, even in our most struggling, in America, the people that are struggling are still more well off than people in other parts of the world. So it's important to remember how blessed we are.
Yes.
And continue to give when we can. So we'll make sure that we have that link below this episode. Is there anything else you wanted to share to make this episode complete?
No, I think that's great. They can just go to our website at America's, with an S on the end, Mighty Warriors, again with an S on the end.org. And check us out. There's more information about Mark. You can read that amazing letter there. And I know it will inspire you and encourage you, just like it has the millions and millions of people who've read that letter. And thank you for being willing to use your platform to encourage others to pass on that kindness. Thank you.
Thank you.